And thank you very much, Jerry. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much for dedicating some time to this webinar of a very, very important topic for all those who are dealing with achieving goals in the organization and making sure that the organization is healthy and meets benefits. So you have my very short biography over here, and I'd like to share with you throughout this webinar the many things that I've been able to be exposed to and also to experience. So more about that as we go through. And we're talking about business benefits realization. I'm sure that all of you are here, and thank you very much for being present, understand that any organization, be it private or public, is seeking benefits and has to measure those, and they are going to be positive for the business. So are we getting results is what most management, if not all management, are asking on a daily, weekly, or monthly. So what are we going to be looking at is how do we relate a business case to the business benefits, and how do KPIs fit into that, and the big difference between KPIs for the business and KPIs for the project, and we see how, as far as project and program managers, one can contribute to ensure the benefits are reached. And we're going to be looking at what is called a benefits management chart, and no benefits can be realized unless the organization is ready to exploit, to use the product or service that is being produced by programs or projects. And how does one plan for that? And once in operation, well, the organization has to realize the benefits. How do you measure that? So we'll see throughout the whole of the webinar where the emphasis for me will be is that managing all types of initiatives and programs and projects, those who are doing this, yourselves, project managers, program managers, line managers, and also division managers, there has to be an entrepreneurial vision as to we are doing this for the organization, and the benefits need to be realized after the long journey of converting a situation today to a situation tomorrow. So let's just have a quick review. Some of you, this would be something you've seen already. Others, I hope it will be enlightening and understand what are business benefits. Okay, so there are many expressions that you find by all the different authors, and I've taken one, adapted it to my way of thinking, is any type of improvement and outcome that can be perceived in operations as advantage. One or more stakeholders. You won't get all the stakeholders buy-in, I'm sure you understand that. But the benefits themselves are of different types. There are some of them were not too difficult, definitely financial. Okay, so if you go launch a new product and you've worked on it, and then the product is selling, well, you're getting back here some financial data, and that can give you some idea of how you can meet the financial goals. You got some expected financial. Well, so if I do this, there's a trend on that, then I'll be able to sell more, or to be able to be much more revenue generating out of my actions. There's a logical financial one, which means that there are a lot of things that will be improved, and we don't have a lot of past data to extrapolate from, but we expect that if our organization produces better products and services, if you have a much better position in the market, then that will benefit a variety of products and services we may have internally or externally. Those are the classical ones. However, the ones which are difficult are the qualitative. Like how do you measure increased efficiency for your staff? Some of them are very difficult, very intangible. It may take a year, or 2 or 3, or may come over very, very quickly. So difficult to measure, but there is an aspiration to be able, shall we say, to increase the image of the organization, to be able to have a major impact in the community. Now, how do you measure that? And these are actions that organizations seek when they want to be able to fulfill their missions. Now, what happens to business benefits? Well, there's going to be some investments. Okay, and whatever investment is going to be made, we would like to have ways of either operating in a much better way or operating a new way, where the word operating is for both private and public enterprises doing things differently. For example, for public enterprises, e-government is a classical way of how we're going to get benefits for society, right? And for private organizations, obviously, it will be what they do in their ways of producing products, services, and other things. And the importance is that the benefits themselves can only be realized after the organization has introduced the necessary changes, which means we are going to be in operations. So the link between the strategic intent of the operation intent is to say, okay, what will happen after we make change happen, which is the project or the program. So a lot of individuals have to be concerned as to what are benefits, and the business units must be involved in these projects. We'll see later on in our webinar things that you may have heard of actually doing, maybe, which will be organizational readiness. Is the organization ready to take up whatever the product or service that is being produced in this initiative so that it can start to exploit it and therefore progressively reach the benefits that one aims for, which is the whole intention of the investment. So a lot of individuals, a lot of stakeholders have to be aligned to the reason for this particular investment. Now, let's have a look how this works in a large big picture. Okay, so from the investment for change, whatever it is, just classical as is, where are we, what are the things we try to do, is the case, defining the case. This is done in many organizations, formally or informally, but eventually you come up to determine what is the reason for doing this change, either a minor change like a process improvement, or a major change like a completely new way of doing things and maybe launching a new product or service. That aims for a situation called to be. And the gap between as is and to be is for us to be able to reach the business benefits, which can only be reached at the situation to be. Now, how do you get from A to B? Well, with a big jump. And that big jump can only be done before we define what needs to be done, which is justified certainly financially, but also organizationally, and we document what are major stable facts that we have, also the assumptions we have, and also the risks we want to address. Now we make the jump, which is building the solution. And that will be where the project life cycle sits, and from the designing of the solution right to the launch of whatever it is that you are designing to build and construct. At that stage, one will go live, and then there's use of the solution. We exploit it, maintain it, and we evolve it, and eventually we retire it. As you can see, if you're not colorblind, on the right-hand side, it is green, and that's where the business benefits will lie. So the gap of time between defining what we want from the concept or from the desire and the vision or mission on the left-hand side of this slide to realizing the business benefit is a long journey. The longer the journey is, the more we open to change. In fact, we're investing for change in an environment of change. That should be kept in mind. So what do we do? In our webinar, we're concentrating on the blue area. Right? If you want to talk about strategic planning, you can come to other webinars, and we have a lot of these, and they will focus on this. We focus on the total picture and emphasizing the whole blue thing. One of the things that we have to consider, of course, is what is a business case. I'm not going to bore you with the details. However, on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see these are the major contents that should exist in a business case, where the goals are being established, feasibilities may have been done, impact analysis, and etc. have been done. And on your business case table of contents, as you can see, a large part will be done in the financial metrics and what will be the major avenues to take now. Business case does not give you the answer, by the way. Business case asks you or defines why an answer is required, why a solution is required. So that would be very important that it is reviewed. That's very important that it's validated. It's very important that the key business drivers are understood by the key parties. And the business goal, you see over there on the left-hand side, is a target. And this looks like a Hollywood movie where Robin Hood actually fires everything exactly in the center of that target, which, for information, is called the gold in archery terms. Well, you know, when you're so far away from the actual target, you may be hitting the white rings and not black, blue, red, and the yellow. So the target gives us a range of where we want to be. And since we're looking at business benefits, we must be talking about, when we talk about the tangible business benefits, what are the financial projections? How many assumptions are being made? What are the risks that we're addressing? And how do we calculate operational costs in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years time? How do we calculate, if you're a commercial enterprise, penetration of the sale of product? And what would be the uptake from the market? How do you, for a public enterprise, how will you measure your community satisfaction in 1, 3, or 4 years? I mean, what does e-government bring to the table? Many things, but how do you measure that? So there is a very important time frame to think of. However, as I always say, initiative and projects fail at the beginning because we lost them incorrectly. And if we don't have that validation of the launch, will give us a very, very bad landing. Overall, that business case and financials covers a big product lifecycle. So from the conceptual design, system design, the development, construction, those will be the major 3 steps of getting us to a point where we can start now to utilize and support whatever we've done, product or service, and that should be the longest period of utilization until we are ready to phase out or dispose. So just the fact that those boxes are of a similar size does not mean they take the similar time frame. However, that's the whole product life cycle. So at the conceptual design on the left, within the whole organization, what would be the period of the utilization and support to be the longest, so that that is where the benefits will actually be realized. And in between, we have the conversion from desire to reality, designing and developing solution. We want to phase out and dispose as late as possible, if possible. Now, what happens in the calculation that we should understand, and that is where the difficulty lies, is if you have now having a look, how do we actually achieve these business benefits? Again, the as is to be. We are going to create, make or buy, own a solution, and then we would exploit it. So you buy something or you make it, that will cost you money. Then you exploit it, that will also cost you money. However, hopefully, as you exploit it, you're also going to gain something. So the exploitation is in operations, and the ownership, as we'll see now, is in the development life cycle of whatever project you've launched or initiative, in order to be able to get to a point where you're going to hand over what you have made or what you've purchased. So initiation, planning, execution, and closeout. And as you're going through the stages, this is just an illustration, you have a cumulative cost. So by the time you get the handover, you have a cumulative cost, which tells you, okay, now I've got a thing, a product or a service, right? It's costing so much money and it's taking me so much time. Now I will operate. And just for simplicity's sake, I've made it as a linear cost, cumulative cost, saying that the operational costs are going to be linear from now on and added to the ownership costs. Someone somewhere would have developed what would be the benefits. Now remember, we have got tangible benefits, easy to measure, and intangible benefits, very difficult to measure. So we have to have a measure mechanism. So this green line, as we are in operations, we are measuring what benefits we are reaping from the investment, and all of a sudden, when we get to that crossover point, and I'm sure you all know what that crossover point is, that is the break-even point, which roughly means I spent so much money for so much time and I'm zero. Now that's a heartbreaking thing for any manager to hear, right? Now the whole period we have in operations, from the moment we started benefit curve to the break-even point, well, that's open to discussion. How long will it be? A week, a month, a year? I know of organizations where the green line never reaches the red line. So, so some people may have got fired for that anyway, but they did another job somewhere. Let's carry on. So that's the whole picture. We want the green line to be greater than the red line, cumulatively, as early as possible. That's when we actually have our return on investments. So that's a picture. Some of you must certainly have seen it before. And we move on now to the next slide. Okay. So how many actions does the project manager have to perform throughout this whole journey is to make sure the operations is going to be aligned to the business benefits we're trying to reach. So we have stakeholders to understand the objectives, we have to understand the changes that may be made in the organization, and we also have to ensure that the changes are made so that the organization is ready to utilize whatever solution is going to be put forward. What about KPIs? Everybody talks about KPIs, key performance indicators. Basically, it's measuring things. I measure things with KPIs. A couple of presentations, and let's clarify what I would call boundaries of KPIs, because it's very misunderstood throughout many organizations. So again, as is to be, fine, you've seen this before, right? And define the case, you've seen this before. Building the solution, I showed you this a few slides ago, and exploiting the solution. So you have the red, the blue, the green. Now, as far as the business KPI boundary, it will start with the concept of the idea where one would like to reach and achieve a certain business benefit, up to including the moment we retire, which means we have put an end to getting back our return on investments. Right? So here you see the business KPI covers the organization, right? And it is driven by stakeholders who are behind the actual change, and will be delivered, talking about the actual business benefits, are delivered in operations. Now, where does a project KPIs are, and there's always a big confusion here. Project KPI mean this is what I will be delivering. Now, whether or not the operation will reach the business benefit depends on the operation's ability and organization and management and other factors which can only be managed under the operational side and therefore outside the boundary of the project. Too many project managers believe that they are still being measured during operations. No, you're going to be measured on what you give the operations, and the operation will be measured on what it actually delivers. So we'll be talking about that. We have to clarify that, and usually it's clarified, as some of you do know, at the start of a project, when you have a project charter, which actually stipulates what the project KPIs are, what are the deliverables that need to be done. So it's quite important that we understand where we start and where we end at a project, and they fit within the business KPI. So the organizational business KPI can only be achieved in the operational phase, which basically means we have delivered the project and handed over. And what happens throughout the whole life of the project manager will be working very closely with the organization because the project contributes to the business KPI. And if there are modification, changes, evolutions in the project, that will have an impact on the organization's KPI. It's good to be able to anticipate that and discuss with the organizational managers. So getting a clear definition of what are the KPIs, ensuring that from the project management point of view, one understands the difference between the organizational KPIs and the project KPIs, and understanding how they are financially and non-financially capable of being met. If you are responsible for increasing the efficiency of a particular organizational department, well, you put in processes, you put in education, you put in training, and then it's the organizational department that's going to be performing to a high level of competence, hopefully, but they're not performing. If people who are laggards, people who are not very interested, then you may well have a different result. But it's not because the project not meeting its KPIs. Quite important, and vice versa. You can deliver bad training, you can deliver bad processes for the organization, and the organization ramps up very, very slowly. Now, that is because the project KPIs have not been fully met. So, the major things to see is to have those objectives well understood within the project. These are the milestone schedules, I won't bore you with that, and that allows the major deliverables to be made available to the organization. Now, what is benefits management? Well, benefits management in the change and the projects and the initiatives is a multi-step process, very linear in its presentation. However, it does have a lot of iteration. Let's see what happens here. At a certain level of management, be it operational, strategic, there's some business benefits that have been identified. People are going to be behind that. There will be sponsorship and different owners. There'll be a benefits map that I will show you in a few moments. It's very, very key to understand how that works. There will be a project which is developed, and therefore there is a baseline which will be performed. There will be a change initiative of how we're going to utilize and exploit the output of our project, and how are we going to progressively introduce this in the organization so that the benefits can be reaped and then measured. So that's a general step-by-step. There are overlaps, there are some iterations, but let's say for the object of this particular presentation is very linear. Now, a benefits map, which is the red part here, we'll see how it all relates to each other. And it's very simple to construct, by the way, now, but it will show many things that the organization needs to look at as it's building it. And we are showing a lot of links between the outcomes and the benefits, and what are the actions that have to be performed to exceed those particular benefits and outcomes, okay? And by doing so, target dates can be established, especially if it's established and scheduled for the project. And we can focus on how all these things interlink. I've seen many organizations where certain actions have been done by projects which were very good. However, other links to a project have hampered the realization of certain key benefits because the interfaces have not been well understood. So let's see how benefits map would look like. Well, we start first of all with what are the key objectives that are the business KPIs. So that will be on the right hand side. I'll just give simple examples. They're classical. I want to increase profit. I want to decrease my operational cost. I want to have satisfaction. And also I would like to have a reduction of project overruns. So one places those objectives on the right, and through the development of the specification of a project and programs, we establish what will be the deliverables that the different projects and programs will produce in order to coincide with the objectives. So the same colors, so the greens, the grays, purple, and the deep purple. Now, this is what we need to do. A deliverable will allow the organization, first of all, to be enabled. So let's take a very simple example. I want to increase profit by 5%, apply, and the deliverable, someone has decided that we need a better CRM, client relation management, and a better marketing program. So those are the two deliverables. They will enable the organization to have a better centralized customer database, and which will allow them to penetrate new markets. All right. And if we follow all these gray boxes, these are the benefits that will enable the organization to work. So they're still not giving us the actual benefits realization, which comes from the enablers. So my sales increase in yellow can only happen because I've got a better customer database per market, and the sales increases are one which will benefit the organization by a margins increase. Now, some of the areas which go across are just to demonstrate that we are interrelating multiple projects, multiple deliverables to engage the organization to reach its multiple business benefits. So you have objectives, you have deliverables, you have enablers, and then you have the actual measurement of benefits following the enablers. So that map is not difficult to make. Once you make that, then it springs to the mind as to how the organization will be able to get the best of the investments. Now, project milestone schedules, I'm sure you know what they are. In order to be able to integrate the partial deliveries or the full deliveries of project deliverables, the management of projects has to synchronize that with what I would call the operational schedule, where the organization will say, okay, this deliverable will be ready at such a date. I need to have my organization ready, be it my people, be it my environment, be it my structure, my processes, so I can start to benefit the circuit. I can start to utilize whatever the project is going to deliver. So there are two schedules here. The project or projects schedules with the different milestone dates, and what I call the operational schedule. At which stage am I going to, as an operational manager, going to start utilizing what the projects are delivering? So the two are synchronized. And that makes such the organizational readiness that I mentioned before, we'll review again later on, is going to be compatible and in harmony. And then we will have mechanisms in operations that allow us to measure how we are performing in operations. That leads us to organizational readiness. I think everybody agrees that if we prepare something for the organization and we throw it over the wall and nobody comes over to pick it up from the wall, and or they don't even know how to pick it up, or maybe it's a hot potato. From the project management point of view, people say, well, deliver that stuff, okay, bye. Well, that's not going to happen. I mean, it doesn't work, does it? Organizational readiness say, okay, we have a wall, whatever, let's use the side of that wall. Let's make sure that everybody knows that we're passing the ball to each other, and there's no hot potatoes. So how do we make the organization ready? So there's a lot of work that needs to perform within the project so that the whole of the organization is in harmony. So the project team and business unit managers, you have to have a lot of workshops, you have to have a lot of awareness discussions, you have to make sure, whoops, that's a very light green over there, a lot of understanding. So you have this through training, of course. You have a lot of discussions with individuals who might be pushing back, and so that there is acceptance in what is going to be happening to the organization. And eventually, you want to make sure that the individuals and organizations are progressively committed because they want to be able to apply whatever it is, the product or the service that is going to be measured once it is in the hands. So on the project planning, the schedule we saw earlier on, these things are added so that there's no surprise to the organization. And the assessment of the organization is a continuous process, okay? And one needs to be able to have within the whole project schedule and conducted by the project team with the business units, a variety of meetings to understand how will that affect people, staffing requirements, training, and so on and forth. Even though the project manager is not responsible for reorganizing the operations, however, the project must understand that there may be a reorganization, there may be some staff hiring, there may be some newcomers that need to be trained, and then the project has to interface to that. So important that correlation between the project team and business unit. And what other processes, apart from the ones that have been modified by the current project, need to be looked at. Now, that may not be within the scope of this project. However, you cannot be blind and also work in a vacuum. So what is going on in parallel so that there is less difficulty in easing through the new product and service that this project is responsible for. And we have to look as well at other things of infrastructure, especially in IT, infrastructure, also new buildings that one goes to, maybe there's a new manufacturing plant, whatever it is that you are working on, depends on your domain of interest. So the assessment is done at the beginning of the project, yeah, and continuously throughout the whole of the life of the project. And that gives us planning that's coordinated between the project team, okay, and the business units. The sponsorship must be there to support that because it means crossing organizational lines quite often. It means that people need to be involved throughout the whole life cycle, and something that you may have heard of is concurrent engineering, is a name called used for that, to be able to ensure that all the major players are present throughout. And the readiness itself, it will be something that has to be looked at. How does it affect people? How does it affect their jobs? How does it affect the change? Whatever it is. So that is something to be addressed with the business unit managers, but they will have to address the resistance to change. But we also have to address whatever training needs to be done. It's processes, methodology. So there's a lot of stuff that is very often, I won't say disregarded, but not taken with as much focus as it should be. And then one finds oneself running at the end of a project phases for, during testing, assembly, whatever it is, for delivery. And all these things come to the head, and it does raise stresses, and people are maybe already being stressed, will be very resistant. So the earlier we start, the more opportunities there are to be able to address these things progressively. Okay? And we get to the point that throughout the whole project life cycle, near the back end, basically, we're doing some form of integration, testing, commissioning, there are many words for that. We don't want to have this resistance, and to avoid resistance, which could either be organizational, because there are changes of structure, because there are political issues, because maybe jobs are going to be changing, some organizational resistance, to be coupled with individual resistance. People are going from one comfort zone to the other. They're going to be doing things differently, whatever it is, even if you just do some continuous improvement. Okay, so in order to avoid that, now we've got to be able to anticipate there will be organizational resistance, there will be individual resistance. One could say, well, I'm a project manager, I don't care. That's a problem of organization. Yes. However, if you do not work with the organization, we'll have even more resistance. So it's just to be aware of that, integrate that into our thinking and also into our action plans. And as we move forward, all these plans are placed as early as possible in the project plan, and we review it continuously, So we plan workshops, we invite individuals, key users, key managers. We try to understand what's going to be the changing of the environment, which may be outside the scope of our project. Excuse me. However, there's no point finger pointing by saying, well, I did not know this, it's somebody else's problem. It doesn't have the organization one bit. You want to have the organization very much. So there are many workshops, discussions, taking time, yes, okay, listening to the users, listening to all those who will be utilizing, exploiting, that goes beyond the organization sometimes. And we will be able to address the classical resistance model, which you may know, this is from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a very well-known model, denial, resistance, exploration, commitment, so that we can break down the denial and resistance as early as possible in projects, and we get people through workshops to explore together better ways of approaching things, so the commitment can kick in as early as possible, not the very last moment, because we're going to go from as is to A to B, which is old state to new state. And by doing so, we move to that very important step where we want to finish the project on one side, the organization is pushing to go live, whatever it is the go live would be, and we want to make that transition. So the transition is, well, how do we progressively move to that point where we're going to switch from the investment we made to operating on that investment? And go live means, okay, we go live. Now we are in production mode. Now we're in exploitation mode. Now we're in operations mode. This is where the clock starts ticking in the benefit realization curve that we saw earlier on in this webinar. So the major challenge is how we interfacing between delivery of the project, whatever change management has been going on in parallel, and how business operations is going to be shifting from one state to the other. Hopefully not overnight. That's called the Big Bang, right? And we stakeholder support. And by doing so, on the transition, we look at how we're going to have a schedule which makes sense, how we can parallel old and new operations so there is transition, we often ramp up. And from the go live, we want to be ready. Are people ready for it? They've been trained, as processes have been in place, have people had their resistance reduced, and so on and so forth. So that makes it an important step. And by going live, we want to confirm that we have got a variety of things, okay? All the things that are needed to operate, because it's operations, as we repeated many times, during operation that the benefits will be realized. So do we have everything that the organization can employ to exploit, whatever flows, process improvements, all the results of the testing that we can prove. And by doing so, have all staff schedules been understood so that people work on all new, how is the training being done, so that people can actually be effective from a certain position. And obviously, if you deal with all vendors, right, as soon as we start to operate, we must make sure those products be fully tested, integrated. Also, there are support contracts because insurance of things that may or may not go correctly during operations. And when we go live, there are many ways. I don't think Big Bang is a good idea. However, it does happen. There are phased and the parallel, so there's a lot of strategies you can use. And you can handhold, all right? Those would be help desk staff, super users, goodness, what you want to call them. You want to have support teams in place. You want to review the schedules and help the organization to go live. And you want to coordinate all schedules so they all meet at the right go live day. It's a big day. When it's well done, you have maybe the local mayor or the local dignitary comes on, and there's a nice big ribbon, and they have a very nice golden or silver pair of scissors, and they cut open a ribbon. Isn't it nice, right? But once you cut the ribbon, you want everything to work. So you can also, of course, provide some parachute or some nets. So what would be the disaster recovery just in case the business stops. So. And finally, this is where there's an English expression which says the proof of the pudding is in eating. Now you might laugh at this because this is a typical English expression. But basically, if you're going to cook yourself a pudding, you put together your flour and your water and your sugar and goodness knows what, and you make your dough. Well, I don't advise you taste it yet. Then you preheat the oven, you stick in there your dough, you wait about 25-30 minutes, and when you take it out of the oven and it's cooled down, then you taste it. Then you taste it, and good luck to you if what you put into your dough has not been what you wanted. So the proof of pudding is get the benefits in operations. So what have you done to actually make the dough, right? And the benefits are right from day one. I remind this particular graphic we saw, very simple graphic, I remind, please. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the essence. Are we, from that green line, going to be going up that same curve? Is the red line going to be that same curve? Now we're trying to meet that crossover break-even point. So, so operations now are under scrutiny because the benefit tracking is there. It's there. So as we're going through, the business units are accountable for benefits, and the business units are the ones which receive the benefits. And the projects and programs that precede the go live are the ones that enable the organization to reach the business benefits. So as the business will progressively ramp up its operation, there'll be a lot of measurements. There may be some tweaking. There may be some re-evaluation. Maybe some of the key initial objectives will have been evolving, or maybe the operation, it is deemed that it cannot actually go where it should go. Maybe certain things have changed, or maybe it's going faster than expected, which give us more opportunities to add more things to get even more benefits. I remind you, the project delivers a functional solution and supports it, whereas the business operation exploits it to deliver the business benefits. Very key. And you have to work in conjunction. You can't also work apart. There's no throwing over the wall here. I mean, you can do it if you want, but it doesn't help anybody. It certainly doesn't help the organization. Now, a couple of last points on here. We have to understand how we have performed, and there are two major reports that one has to consider. Not only how we have performed now, but how we can actually make sure that our lessons learned can benefit from something. First of all, the project implementation view, PIR, is how have we done on the project, its effectiveness, how we made our deliverables, how our schedule and costs, how we've related to the organization, how have we been able to manage evolution and change. That is the project up to and including go live, handover. And another report, it's still called the project evaluation review. However, it evaluates how the operation was effective as provided by the project results. All right? So here's open to a lot of political debate, by the way, who's responsible for that. Eventually, it has to be done to prove that the organization has benefited from the investment made by the project, and what can we do in order to extract from that things that we can repeat for the future, and what can we extract from that we should do differently. It's the end of our webinar. Okay, so I found this on the internet on the left. I'm sure you know who that guy is. And so in our official webinar, I'd like you to reflect upon what you've taken away. I think that on the basis of our evaluation post-webinar, it'd be very nice for all of you to be able to feedback us and one of the things. I remind you daily on a weekly basis. I concentrate quite a lot on initiatives and management of change and projects and programs and leadership issues.